Austria is known for its breathtaking landscapes and precision engineering, but not every project has lived up to expectations. Yes, the land of Mozart, Strudel, and Arnold Schwarzenegger has given us wonders. But for every perfectly crafted Glock pistol or exquisitely timed Vienna Philharmonic performance, there's a project that makes you tilt your head and say, wait, what were they thinking? It's like finding out that the guy who designed your flawless Porsche also invented a fork that only holds peas. It's baffling, slightly disappointing, and frankly, a little hilarious. Tonight, we're taking a journey through Austria's grandest follies. We'll explore a nation with a rich history of ambitious infrastructure, from the mighty Alpine tunnels to the sprawling Habsburg palaces. But we're not here for the success stories. Oh no. We're diving headfirst into the blunders, the boondoggles, the magnificent monuments to misplaced optimism. These are the projects that were meant to symbolize progress but instead became very expensive, very permanent punchlines. So grab a Red Bull, another Austrian invention by the way, which probably felt like a terrible idea at first, and settle in. We're about to uncover the most pointless, perplexing, and downright profligate construction projects in recent Austrian history. From underground tunnels leading to nowhere to bridges that connect nothing to anything, this is a tour of ambition gone spectacularly, beautifully, and expensively wrong. Let's begin our tour in Vienna, a city of imperial palaces and grand boulevards. But we're not looking up, we're looking down, deep down, to a project called the Hypergen Wien. The name itself sounds like something a Bond villain would call his underground lair, doesn't it? Welcome, Mr. Bond, to my Hypergen. Prepare for a needlessly complicated and budget-draining demise. And honestly, that's not far from the truth minus the laser sharks, I assume. The idea was, on the surface, quite sensible. Vienna's main library, the National Bibliothek, was running out of space. A very relatable problem for anyone who refuses to switch to a Kindle. So they decided to build a vast, state-of-the-art underground storage facility right beneath the Heldenplatz, or Heroes Square. It was meant to be a climate-controlled, high-tech sanctuary for millions of books, a subterranean fortress of knowledge protecting Austria's literary heritage for centuries to come. It was a noble, almost romantic vision. The project was approved in the late 1980s with a budget that seemed, at the time, manageable. But this is where our story takes its first, inevitable turn into the theater of the absurd. Digging a massive 4-story cavern underneath one of Vienna's most historic and heavily trafficked squares is, and I'm using a technical term here, bloody difficult. Engineers encountered unexpected geological problems, groundwater issues, and the logistical nightmare of not, causing the entire Hofburg Palace to sink into the earth. As the digging went deeper, so did the project's financial hole. The costs began to spiral out of control with the kind of velocity that would make an astronaut queasy. The initial estimates were quickly left in the dust, doubling, then tripling. Politicians and project managers offered assurances, using phrases like unforeseen complexities and necessary investments, which is politician speak for, oh God, we've made a terrible, terrible mistake, and we can't stop now. By the time the Hypergen was finally completed in the early 1990s, the final bill was astronomical, a figure so bloated it could have its own seat in parliament. The public was, to put it mildly, not amused. Newspapers ran headlines questioning the sanity of the whole endeavor. It became a symbol of government waste, a punchline for cabaret artists, and a cautionary tale whispered among city planners. The grand vision had been tarnished by the grimy reality of its price tag. But here's the real kicker. After all that money, all that controversy, all that digging, it remains largely unused. Yes, you heard me. The vast cavernous halls designed to house a nation's intellect are mostly empty. Logistical issues, concerns about the preservation conditions, and the sheer cost of operating the facility meant that only a fraction of the collection ever made the journey downstairs. The great fortress of knowledge is more like a very expensive, very empty basement. Think about that. An enormous climate-controlled multi-story structure sits beneath the feet of tourists and locals in Vienna, doing almost nothing. It's the world's most over-engineered wine cellar without the wine. It's a monument not just to cost overruns, but to a fundamental failure of planning. They built the solution before they fully understood the problem, and now they're left with a gigantic, empty reminder of their folly. It's a perfect metaphor for so many grand projects. The ambition is sexy, the ribbon-cutting ceremony is glorious, but the long-term practicality is often an afterthought. The Hypergen Wien is a testament to that. A silent, empty space that speaks volumes about what happens when you dig a hole for yourself that's just too deep and too expensive to climb out of. Next, we fly south to Graz, Austria's second-largest city. A lovely place known for its culinary scene and a rather friendly-looking futuristic art museum that looks like a giant metallic sea slug. In the early 2000s, Graz had a dream to become a major international travel hub. They looked at their modest regional airport and thought, we can do better, we can be bigger, we can be emptier. Well, they didn't say that last part out loud. The plan was ambitious, a massive expansion of Graz airport. This wasn't just a new coat of paint and some better signage. We're talking a brand new gleaming terminal, extended runways, and the capacity to handle millions more passengers per year. The vision was clear: to attract major international airlines, connect Styria to the world, and bring in a flood of tourists and business travelers. The PowerPoints must have been spectacular. They sold it as a vital investment in the region's future. Proponents argued that if you build it, they will come. The they in this case being plane loads of people from London, Paris and Dubai, all desperate for a direct flight to southern Austria. The logic was that the existing infrastructure was holding Graz back, and only a grand shiny new airport could unlock its true potential. It was a classic Field of Dreams scenario, only instead of ghost baseball players, they were hoping for budget airlines. Construction went ahead, and a significant amount of public and private money was poured into the project. The result was, objectively, a very nice airport. It was modern, spacious and clean. It had all the bells and whistles you'd expect. Expansive check-in halls, long baggage carousels and gates stretching off into the distance. There was just one tiny, insignificant problem with this beautiful new gateway to the world. Nobody used it. The massive surge in international travel they had banked on simply never materialized. The major airlines didn't rush to add Graz to their route maps. The anticipated flood of passengers was more of a slow, disappointing trickle. It turned out that most people flying to Austria were still perfectly happy landing in Vienna, and the demand for direct international flights to Graz was, to be charitable, wildly overestimated. So, for years, large sections of the newly expanded Graz airport have sat eerily quiet. You can walk through gleaming cavernous terminals that are almost completely deserted. Gates that were built to welcome jumbo jets now serve the occasional regional flight. The baggage carousels, designed for an endless stream of luggage, often sit motionless. It's less an international hub and more a modern art installation on the theme of loneliness. It's a classic case of supply dramatically outstripping demand. They built a cathedral of travel for a congregation that never showed up. The airport functions, of course, serving its regional purpose perfectly well. But the grand expansion, the part that cost all the money and fueled all the dreams, stands as a monument to wishful thinking. It's a pristine, underutilized facility waiting for a boom that never came. The Graz airport expansion is a lesson written in empty departure lounges and silent corridors. It shows the danger of confusing ambition with analysis. Just because you want to be an international hub doesn't mean the world's airlines and passengers will agree. Sometimes, a perfectly good regional airport is just that. And trying to turn it into something it's not just leaves you with a lot of empty space and a very light flight schedule. Our next stop takes us to Linz, a city on the Danube River, famous for its steel industry and a delicious cake called the Linzer Torte. But we're not here for dessert. We're here for a piece of infrastructure that is arguably less useful than a fork-resistant torte. I'm talking about the so-called Bridge to Nowhere, a structure whose name, I assure you, is not an exaggeration. It is a masterpiece of pointlessness, a concrete and steel shrug. The story begins with a grand urban development plan for the east side of Linz. The vision was for a vibrant new district, full of housing, offices and parks. And to connect this glorious new neighborhood to the rest of the city, a new bridge over the Danube was essential. It was to be the central artery of this new urban heart, a symbol of connection and progress. The plans were drawn, the speeches were made, and construction on the bridge began. Now, in a sane and rational world, you would probably build the neighborhood first, or at least at the same time as the bridge. You build the destination, and then you build the road to get there. That makes sense, right? Well, the planners in Linz decided to adopt a more, let's say, avant-garde approach to city planning. They started with the bridge. They poured millions into constructing this elegant, modern crossing over the river, and they did a fantastic job. The bridge itself is a fine piece of engineering. It's sturdy, it looks nice, and it successfully spans the mighty Danube. It does everything you could possibly ask a bridge to do except for one minor detail: connect to anything meaningful on the other side. Because while the bridge was being built, the grand development plan for the Eastern District, well, it stalled. And then it stopped, completely. Economic downturns, political squabbles, and shifting priorities meant that the vibrant new city district never left the drawing board. The promised offices, apartments, and parks remained a fantasy. But the bridge, the very expensive bridge, was already there. So now Linz is the proud owner of a multi-million euro structure that majestically arches over the river from a developed part of the city to an empty field. It literally ends in a patch of grass. You can drive or walk across this beautiful bridge, admire the view, and then find yourself abruptly deposited in the middle of nowhere, with nothing to do but turn around and go back. It's like a teleportation device with a faulty destination setting. It's not a bridge, it's a pier that got lost. It's an incredibly scenic U-turn. For years, it has stood as a stark physical reminder of failed urban planning. It's the butt of local jokes and a source of considerable frustration for taxpayers who see it every day, spanning the river to absolutely no purpose. It is the architectural equivalent of buying a magnificent jewel-encrusted front door before you've even bought the land to build a house on. Efforts have been made over the years to try and revive the development plans, to finally build something on the other side that would justify the bridge's existence, but for now, it remains beautifully, tragically, and hilariously pointless. It serves as a powerful lesson. A bridge is only as useful as the places it connects. And when one of those places is nothing, then the bridge itself becomes little more than a very, very expensive sculpture. Let's travel to one of the most beautiful cities on earth, Salzburg, the birthplace of Mozart, the setting for The Sound of Music. A city so picturesque it looks like it was built by Disney's slightly more serious German cousin. In the late 1990s, Salzburg decided it needed to bolster its reputation as a modern business destination. The solution? A massive, ultra-modern conference center, the Salzburg Congress. The vision was, as always, grand. This wouldn't be just any hall for trade shows. It was to be a world-class venue, an architectural marvel capable of hosting the biggest and most prestigious international summits, medical conferences, and corporate galas. They envisioned global leaders and industry titans flocking to Salzburg, thrashing out the world's problems against a backdrop of alpine peaks. It would bring money, prestige, and year-round business to the city. The project was a complete overhaul of an existing, more modest center. This was a teardown and rebuild on a heroic scale. The designs were sleek and ambitious, featuring vast, flexible halls, cutting-edge technology, and a glass-heavy aesthetic designed to reflect the city's blend of history and modernity. Of course, a project this grand came with a grand price tag, but it was pitched as a necessary investment to compete on the global stage. As construction began, the familiar story started to unfold. The budget, which was already substantial, began to swell like a soufflé in a hot oven. Construction challenges, design changes, and the sheer complexity of the build sent costs soaring far beyond the original projections. The term budget blowout became synonymous with the project. Local media and opposition politicians had a field day, questioning the wisdom of spending such a fortune on a single building. When the Salzburg Congress finally opened its doors in 2001, it was undeniably impressive. A gleaming temple of commerce and communication. The city held its breath, waiting for the flood of bookings from the world's top event organizers. They had the venue, they had the view, they had the Mozart Kugel chocolates ready. The only thing they didn't have was the overwhelming demand they had counted on. It turned out that the international conference market was, and is, incredibly competitive. Cities like Vienna, Berlin, and Geneva already had a firm grip on the big-ticket events. While the Salzburg Congress was beautiful, it struggled to lure away the mega-conferences from these established players. It was like a stunningly handsome actor showing up to a casting call for a role that had already been unofficially promised to George Clooney. The center wasn't a total failure. It hosts many national and smaller international events. but it has consistently struggled to attract the kind of premier, headline-grabbing conventions that were used to justify its enormous cost. The cavernous main halls are often underutilized, and the building's running costs are a constant drain on the city's finances. It's a beautiful, expensive suit that doesn't get worn to the big parties nearly as often as it should. The Salzburg Congress is a classic example of build it and hope they come economics. It highlights the risk of misjudging a competitive market and assuming that a shiny new building is all it takes to change global business patterns. It's a beautiful facility, a testament to architectural ambition. But it's also a sobering reminder that in the world of international events, location and reputation often matter more than glass and steel. For our final exhibit, we return to Vienna, specifically to a modern district on the banks of the Danube called Donau City, or DC. This area is Vienna's attempt at a futuristic business hub, complete with shiny skyscrapers that stand in stark contrast to the city's historic center. The centerpiece of this district is the DC Tower 1, Austria's tallest building, a sleek, black, undulating shard of glass. It is, by all accounts, a success. But we're not here to talk about that one. We're here to talk about its invisible twin. The original master plan for Donau City called for not one, but two towers. A matching pair, DC Tower 1 and DC Tower 2 were designed to stand side by side, creating a dramatic, symmetrical gateway to this new part of the city. They were meant to be architectural siblings, a powerful statement of Vienna's modern ambitions. DC Tower 1 went up without a hitch and was completed in 2014. And then, everyone waited for its partner, and they waited, and they're still waiting. The plan for DC Tower 2, a slightly shorter but equally stylish skyscraper, has been stalled for years. The plot of land right next to Austria's tallest building, a prime piece of real estate designated for its companion, sits conspicuously empty. It's not a park. It's not another building. It's just a hole. A well-maintained, professionally fenced-off patch of dirt. What happened? A cocktail of familiar problems. After the completion of Tower 1, the economic climate shifted. Finding tenants and financing for a second massive skyscraper proved to be much more difficult than anticipated. The market for high-end office space became saturated, and the developers got cold feet. The grand vision of a perfectly balanced architectural duo slammed headfirst into the dull reality of spreadsheets and risk assessment. So for years, the most prominent skyscraper in Austria has had a ghost for a neighbor. It's like seeing one of the twin towers standing alone. It feels incomplete, asymmetrical, and slightly sad. Every day, thousands of people see this monument to modern Vienna, and right next to it, a monument to a plan that fizzled out. It's the architectural equivalent of a cliffhanger for a TV show that got cancelled. The empty lot has become a symbol of unrealized potential. There have been numerous announcements over the years that construction is about to begin, with new designs and new timelines proposed. Yet nothing has broken ground. It's a project perpetually stuck in development hell. It's the Duke Nukem Forever of Austrian construction projects. Promise after promise, with nothing to show for it but an empty space where something magnificent was supposed to be. This isn't a story of wasted construction funds like our other examples. It's a story of wasted opportunity and a vision cut in half. The planning, the design, the intention, it's all there. But the execution is missing. The second tower exists only in architectural renderings and on the fading pages of the original master plan. It's a phantom limb on Vienna's skyline. The empty plot for DC Tower 2 is perhaps the most poignant of all our examples. It's not a bridge to nowhere. It's a foundation for nothing. It represents the gap between a city's soaring ambition and the cold, hard ground of economic reality. It's a daily reminder that sometimes, even the most carefully laid plans can result in nothing more than a very prominent, very visible, and very empty lot. So there you have it. From a cavernous, empty hole under Vienna to a lonely skyscraper on the Danube, Austria's landscape is dotted with monuments to grand ambition and spectacular miscalculation. These projects, born from visions of progress and prestige, became cautionary tales. They sparked public outrage, not just for the colossal waste of taxpayers' money, shillings and euros that could have funded schools, hospitals, or perhaps just a lifetime supply of schnitzel for everyone, but for the sheer, visible evidence of failure. The reaction from the Austrian public has ranged from cynical jokes to genuine anger, feeding a deep-seated skepticism about large-scale government and private sector undertakings. The lesson learned, or at least the lesson that have been learned, is a simple one. A project's success isn't measured by the size of the ribbon-cutting scissors, but by its actual long-term utility. It's a reminder that planning, market analysis, and a healthy dose of realism are far more valuable than a glossy architect's rendering. These follies are more than just financial black holes. They are part of the country's story now. They are landmarks of what not to do, permanent reminders etched into the very fabric of the cities they were meant to improve. Which of these projects shocked you the most? The bridge to an empty field, the airport for phantom passengers? Share your opinion in the comments below. Austria's skyline is a testament to ambition, but sometimes even the best laid plans can lead nowhere.